Hey, everybody. I'm Jesse, producer of the No Quitting the Home Team podcast. I wanted to give a quick disclaimer in that while we hope anyone who listens would gain wisdom and insight from Dave and Renee's conversations, this is still a podcast intended for married couples, and to that end, there will occasionally be dialogue around sexual intimacy and other related topics. So, for those of you who may be single and particularly sensitive to this subject matter, or those who may be listening at home or in the car with their kids around, we wanted to give you a heads up in advance so that you might continue listening at your own discretion.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 16 of season 2 of No Quitting the Home Team. I'm Renee.
I'm Dave.
I'm Jesse.
And we're glad you joined us today for a bit of an unusual episode.
That's right. We are finished reading books about marriage.
Yes.
We're done with that now
Yes.
for this season.
No more marriage books ever.
Nope.
But today we are going to talk about something that occasionally happens to married folks, which is they sometimes have children.
Oh boy.
And when they have children, things seem to change in their marriage dynamics. So, Renee, you want to give us a little taster of what's coming up?
Well, in previous episodes, we've referenced experts in various fields of marriage. And today there are 0 experts. We are just musing.
Or there's 3 experts.
There's 3 armchair experts.
Yes.
And we are musing through personal experience and observation and life experience how to mesh marriage and parenting in a way that's life-giving. Because often the compatibility is difficult sometimes.
That's right.
So we're just gonna chat about it.
Yes. To give attention to one often takes from the other.
Yep. So there's the teaser.
All right. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
Renee,
Yes.
how are you?
I am doing well. It is freezing and snowy here in Denver today, so I slid all the way here, slid and sloshed.
Yes.
We're good. We've had a super busy week with our kids' finals and just some other things. We have a friend staying with us right now, and we are really looking forward to the Thanksgiving break.
Yes.
I feel like our boys aren't generally really stressed by school, and I've felt like they have been really stressed, and that's a yucky kind of parent place to watch that because there's a lot of pressure on kids, and I've observed that a little bit more in the last couple of weeks, especially with our oldest, that just the toll of expectations and deadlines and performance. Don't you think? I think like he's been really stressed.
Definitely. And the prospect of just getting away
Yeah.
and going fishing at the creek and
Yeah.
doing all the things that you do in rural Oklahoma,
Yep.
I think will be really good for all of them and for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to be good for us. So I'm kind of getting the same sort of energy out of sort of the hope of that for next week. And yeah, I've felt that our kids have put in a lot of work into these finals, all of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, feel kind of that stress as well.
Yeah. But I think we're doing well. I don't know if we can fully unpack this, but we underwent sort of an intensive week of counseling recently, specifically related to life planning and kind of next steps for each of us, respectively, professionally and our marriage. And
Was this spurred by the conversation, the question that was asked about 3 months ago on this very podcast?
No, it certainly that's the fact that we've had this life plan on the books has been the cause for a lot of these discussions. And for me, like, even the hesitation of having any like declarative statements around what are we going to do sort of for the next phase of our life. I've just been holding back because I know we're going to have like a proper,
Because you knew this was coming.
we have
Yeah.
a proper
Yeah.
process with an expert leading us through it.
I mean,
It was intense.
it was intense.
Yes.
And I think I think largely it was a really helpful experience. But I think I'm still just swimming in everything we learned and talked about. And don't you think?
Yeah, we were given 25 over the course of the week. We have 25 pages of thick content
exercises.
and things about our lives and about sort of turning points and potential things forward.
And gifts and strengths and passions and even how God has used us in certain ways and using that metric as a projection of maybe where he wants to use us in the future. I mean, it was like drinking from Niagara Falls.
Yes. So, do you feel like next week we'll be able to process some of it? Because we haven't really, life has been crazy literally
Right.
since then. Do you feel like next week we'll be able to kind of debrief more about that?
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah.
But I think I've just needed some time to percolate on it.
Yeah.
But I think it was a really, really immensely helpful experience. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, same. So, Jesse, to answer your question, this life planning process was recommended to us from another pastor last year.
Who you know.
Cool. Yeah.
And he and his wife did it, and it was very
I know
helpful.
of whom you speak.
Yeah, it was very helpful to them. So that was sort of, he planted the seed, and then there was a whole process to get it planned and
Yeah.
funded and all that stuff. So
Yeah. And I think you selflessly really wanted to undertake this process for me more than, I think you have a lot. Your kind of next 10, 20 years are a little clearer, I think. Less ambiguity. So I
Yeah.
think you really wanted to do this for me
well, I wanted
and us.
for us.
Yeah.
I wanted the next phase of our life to be something that has shared meaning. Mm-hmm. That we go through a process together and can see kind of the future as best as we can, sort of together, not just, oh, we're just going to do whatever the next easiest thing is,
Yeah.
but intentionally, what is it that God's leading us as a couple together?
Yeah.
We wanted to be able to go through a process I really wanted to, whatever that plan is, for us to be in it sort of 100% together
Yeah.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, the funniest thing, so it was so intense and lots of just like soul searching and introspection and thinking. And the last day, Dave was like, you know how you had those old school like wind up toys that you get them all wound up and they're just like walking, and then by the end they're just like barely moved. The last day I was watching Dave and I was like, he's about to stop. He's either about
Just going to fall over.
fall asleep or just say I've got nothing left.
I felt like, you know, you have those glasses that have the eyeballs on the glasses on the outside. I felt like that, but just that was actually how, like, I was just dead on the inside.
Yeah. Just 1,000-yard stare.
Yes.
was.
Totally glossed over.
Those last 3 hours, I'm glad we made it through those.
Yeah. Well, our facilitator, she earned her money.
She
that
did
last
earn her
day.
money.
She had to work.
Anyhow,
Well, that's really exciting.
yeah, it was
yeah,
exciting.
it's really
I think we'll share more, and I think Dave's going to share more with the staff and elders and in the upcoming days. So,
Can't wait.
yeah. So, how are you?
Yeah, good. My wife is 35 today.
Oh, it's her birthday's today.
It is her
Hey.
birthday today.
Shell, let's
She's
go.
not excited about it, but not fully excited about it. I don't know. She just you know, those things matter. And yet she is younger in spirit than I've ever known her. So
Yeah.
while while she, as with many others, is lamenting being squarely in her mid-30s, I think she is feeling encouraged and filled up and very loved. So, so if you see my wife after hearing this episode, it will be past her birthday, but you can still go ahead and tell her happy birthday.
Belated.
She'll welcome it. Yeah. She loves having the attention be on her. And unlike me, I mean that
As
genuinely.
do I. Oh,
yeah.
she does?
Yeah, she actually genuinely likes that.
Okay.
So,
Oh, nice. Good to know.
yeah. But we're doing well. We're doing well. I've been kind of neck deep in songwriting, which is cool. So for my band here at FDC and also for my band outside of FDC.
Does this weather, it just feels so moody.
Yeah.
Is this like songwriting weather?
Well, it doesn't take much for me to get into songwriting weather in my mind.
Okay.
I'm rather moody and melancholy just as a baseline, and so it doesn't take much to get me there. But yes, the weather helps. Looking outside and seeing gray skies and snow absolutely helps. So, but yeah, it's been fun to kind of flex those creative muscles a little bit. Yeah,
Very cool.
that's
Great.
about it. Our children are insane and amazing as always.
Good.
So.
And out of the hospital.
Not in the hospital anymore. Yeah, that was. We didn't get into too much detail on that last week, if at all. But there was an emergency hospital stay. It all worked out. It was fine. It's going to be some minor surgery, but we're gonna be good. The boys are
great.
happy, in full spirits.
Great. All right, Renee.
Yes.
Speaking of kids,
Speaking
of
of
kids.
kids, parenting.
Okay, so I think I'm going to frame it up this way. Again, the disclaimer that we are not experts. We're just musing.
just seasoned.
We are
we are
we've lived some life.
but fellow travelers.
Yes, and we're making observations along the way.
Yes.
So I think this is the reality in modern parenting and marriage is that many statistics show that one of the strongest indicators of a healthy child who turns into a healthy adult is how the strength of their parents' union, right? Mm-hmm. So strong marriages are very, very, very good for kids.
Yes.
Emotional well-being, physical well-being, spiritual well-being. It's just good. It's a very fertile incubator for them to grow up in.
Yeah.
And yet, culturally, we are very kid-centric. And I was thinking about this week when I was reading, maybe it was last week, when sadly Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen came out with their divorce decrees on social media. And there was a line in both of them that you see in almost every dissolution of marriage.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Irreconcilable differences.
That, but also we will continue to make our kids the center
center.
of our world where they should be. And you always see that, right? And so I think we exist in this reality where we know it's really important to maintain a strong marriage as you bring kids into the world. And yet the expectations of parenting are so kid-centric that it detracts from that.
From the marriage itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And, it takes 18 years to kick the kids out of the house. And so 18 years of that in various iterations, it just takes its toll.
Yes.
So I think maybe we could talk about just that reality. What you've seen, like balancing both. Because, we can't raise kids in our present day and just be like, ignore them. Right?
Right.
We have to exist in the society where we find ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So there are extracurricular, there are things that just take a lot of energy and money, honestly, to raise kids now. And so how do you make it the most compatible parenting and prioritizing your marriage relationship? while sort of both sides get equal nourishment, appropriate nourishment, maybe not equal.
Man, it's such a great sort of question and kind of lead into this discussion. It hits to the very tension that is that every married couple with kids faces. That you do have to. There's only 24 hours in the day, and once you have kids in the picture, kids, at least at an early stage, they don't care about your marriage.
No.
Right.
They don't care. They don't care about your happiness. They've not once will a toddler ever go, "Oh, you seem to be kind of tired, and why don't you take it easy, and I'll take care of myself." That's something that never comes out of a kid's mouth or is thought by a child because they're the center of their own universe. And because of that, the amount of pressure, time, energy required from parents to deal with and to address their children is going to detract from the time they would spend with each other, because it's just a limited amount of time in the day and a limited amount of energy. And so you're going to feel that you're going to have the sting of relational difficulty and dysfunction with your spouse as a result of that. It's just going to happen one way or the other. So part of the question is, how do you mitigate against that? What are some things you can do to counteract or counterbalance some of those realities?
And I think adding to that, in generations past, there was extended family around to absorb that.
Yeah.
So it's like grandma picks the kids up from school, and then they're going to play at my sister's house, and there were other. It's the over roles that we have to assume.
Yeah.
So in some ways, if you're raising kids away from extended family, you have to serve every role, from caregiver to chauffeur to all of it. Whereas I think in previous generations, some of that was absorbed elsewhere.
Yeah, there's extended households.
Yeah, which further detracts from your energy for your marriage and your relationship.
Ask us how overjoyed we were when my sister and her husband bought a house 2.5 blocks from us.
Yeah, and how did it change? How did it change your...
Well, of course, drastically.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even, again, calling back to the other day when we had to take Jacob to the hospital, it was like, hey, Shell's there with him, I'm here at the house, and my sister was like, go to the hospital. I will stay there as long as I need to. I'll, stay the night. If whatever ends up happening, I've got the little one, you go be with the others, right? And the flexibility of that too in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's
so without that, the compounding stress of not having that, I think is a huge factor
by the marriage.
Marriage for sure.
And because we are so mobile, like think of us. We're both from Oklahoma, but since college, we've lived
in Texas.
Texas, England, 2 different places in England, and then to Denver. So we haven't lived near kind of our geographical sort of homeland for the longest time. So we've raised our kids, started having our kids overseas, raised them here in Denver, away from the influence and like the structural kind of niceties of family and kind of the relief. Certainly earlier in the sort of development of kids, sort of those earlier years, we didn't have any of that relief. So we had to absorb it in our relationship and then create a community around us that can help to alleviate some of that pressure as well. But your point, though, is important, which is we all, of course, once we have kids, we love our kids like crazy. We want them to do well. We want them to be emotionally, spiritually, psychologically whole and flourishing. And the best way to do that is for you and I to have a meaningful, growing relationship. Like our marriage is the pathway for that. So it's
a pathway.
It's a pathway. It's a critical pathway.
A critical, and maybe the primary pathway.
Optimal, like the book we read last week.
Yeah.
It's the optimal, like marriage, a good marriage, sort of the optimal environment for raising kids. And so, how do you create marriage as a value? Carve out time to reflect that value.
Yeah.
When your own children and the realities of having kids detracts from that time and diminishes that energy and
Yep.
kind of works to fracture those patterns that are life-giving. I mean, that's the tension. So
Yeah.
I think
So maybe we should, in our own experience and what we've observed, what are some don't do's? Like, what are some ditches?
okay.
Because I think I can think of, and we're out of the just physically exhausting years. So I do think,
Although my kids now want to wrestle with me.
I know that's
A
true,
lot.
but I'm out of the physically exhausting years.
Right. They don't wrestle with you.
No, they're very kind and loving to me.
I know. I think they get a lot of joy.
Beckett,
and now that
Beckett
they're bigger,
says that. Beckett says, "I get joy from hurting you."
he does say that.
Out loud.
That does
often.
come out of his mouth. And they get a kick out of now. Ian and Will are both taller than me, lift weights. They get a kick out of like picking me up and throwing me around the house.
Yeah,
And,
but we digress.
yeah. So
I'll kick us off. I think one thing that is so easy to fall into here in Denver, and I think in the United States in general, is the trap of the lure of overly busy and overly scheduled. And there sort of is a badge of honor if, I think I feel it from the mom side. If your kids, my kids do taekwondo and they play soccer and they ride horses and they take piano, and there's a badge of like a good parenting scout badge that I feel like people wear the busier they get, as if busy correlates with attentive, thoughtful parenting.
Yeah.
And I think that's one that you just can't keep all of those balls spinning and have.
So that expectation of keeping up with all of that, you have to, in order to keep from going crazy and to have some semblance of time with your spouse,
Right.
You have to discard those expectations,
Or not the expectations, just the practice.
right? Or how you receive those expectations. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just this water we swim in.
Well, yeah. When was the last time you were catching up with someone and they didn't respond to the question of, well, how are you? With, well,
We're so busy.
staying busy,
Yep, totally.
pretty busy, staying busy.
Yep.
Like it's a badge of honor.
Yeah.
It's almost expected.
Yeah.
Or what'd you do today? We just sat on the back porch and our kids just picked some grass and threw it around. Like that's not esteemed.
No.
So I think that's a huge, and our kids do activities. So I'm not advocating just completely withdrawing from outside home activities outside the home. But I think that's a huge pitfall where marriages have zero time for each other.
Yeah. Another one, and this is especially for a Christian world, is that parents in the church can get caught up into any number of sort of parenting techniques and philosophies and hold to a lot of oughts with parenting. And that can become a bit of a trap.
As it
When-
relates to marriage.
Well, with parenting, and it puts pressure on marriage because there's simply just here's the right way and the godly way to do it.
And if it's not going, if it's not producing the desired result, then there's stress.
Yeah, there's stress or even like questioning God and those sort of things happen. And I think the counterbalance to that is realizing that what the Bible says about parenting is actually pretty minimal. There's not a lot on it in Scripture. What it says is clear, and it is really important, but what it doesn't say, I think, also communicates a lot of freedom
Yeah.
a lot of flexibility, a lot of you can try this and try this on, and then if it doesn't work, you can go, okay, I don't think that's working anymore. It's not fitting for my kid. Look, we're gonna have to do something else. That there's mental and emotional kind of flexibility that comes with realizing there's just a handful of things as Christian parents, we have to do with our kids. And then there's a whole array of other ways we relate to our kids that's fits in the area of like just basic wisdom and what do you think's right in this moment.
Right.
It's contextual. That then how that relates to marriage is it just relieves a ton of pressure. So we're not having to sort of live up to some standard of Christian
Sort of arbitrarily stated standard of some philosophy or method or whatever.
right that maybe purports to be biblical, but when you look into it, maybe there's a Bible verse, but it's not necessarily from Scripture. The whole philosophy. So, to me, I think there's a lot of freedom that just when as a parent and when you're parenting together your children to know, hey, here are the things that are important. We're commanded to do this as disciples of Jesus, and apart from that, there's a ton of freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. I think another one from like the mom perspective is, so I mean, giving birth is such a indescribable and unique experience. And there is such a visceral attachment, literally for 9 months. And then it continues to feel like a visceral attachment, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy for moms to switch affection from, if I'm just connected to my kids, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I think that happens a lot, where it's like, I have this God-given creation that was given to me, that came from me. And if I'm connected to them, that's all I need.
You see that in the Great Sex Rescue.
Yeah.
That book highlights that. And so does Esther Perel in Mating in Captivity. She talks about that as well. That because there is a sensual kind of connection.
It just, it feels like you can't get rid of it if you wanted to. It's visceral. Whereas I think marriage is different. Like the marriage relationship, it's complicated. It's two adults that sometimes you volitionally choose each other when you don't feel like it. Like, I don't know. It's a unique pull and connection that really can't be severed. Whereas I think the marriage relationship has to be nurtured more and has to be built into volitionally. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No.
And I don't think dads have that same experience. Do you? Or maybe?
I think there's definitely a bonding, more or less, but it is different.
Yeah, it is different.
I mean, the experience of carrying a baby and delivering and having, the nourishment of that child literally come from your body through breastfeeding. Like that's something that's totally unique to mother and child.
I just think I've seen so many people in my orbit, but also, in the broader culture, that they're completely happy to have the marriage end because they got their kids out of it.
Yeah.
And it seems like that could be a ditch.
Yeah, absolutely. And some women who emotionally get that attachment from their children and then no longer really need it from their husband in the same way. Husbands then get caught up into traps of they still have sexual impulse and desire. And so you see all manner of addictions begin to emerge in that season of life.
Right.
With couples where the wife will withdraw sexually and then the husband is frustrated and can justify all kinds of of sexual misbehavior. And then, okay, that's really bad for marriage too.
Right.
So that's a huge pitfall that you see a lot of couples get into.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of get stuck in these sort of survival
Right.
patterns.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, I think you're, in some ways, you're in survival patterns for a long time.
Yes.
That calcify,
Yep.
and then it's hard to undo them.
Yep.
If you go in with harmful patterns, it's really hard to reverse course.
It is. This is where like themes of forgiveness are really important for marriages as they're having kids because they're going to go through dark seasons.
Right.
It's just going to happen. So how will you respond? Well, hopefully with the heart of forgiveness and an ability to restore and being sensitive to growing and recognizing, okay, when I'm stuck in survival modes, that means I've flattened out my spouse and I've sort of turned them into a non-complicated person
Right.
who's easy to loathe. And a way you counteract that is through obviously God's Spirit, an experience of personal forgiveness through the gospel. I think that's really critical. And then you can begin to extend that grace to each other
Yeah.
in ways that might be really sweet and redemptive.
Yeah, I think we could probably stay in this topic on things that put stresses on marriages when you're having kids for a long time. I'm going to mention one last thing, and then we'll try to pivot to just some helpful things we've seen that have been helpful in trying to keep both strong. I do think the financial strain of having kids, particularly related to childcare alone, is a marriage killer.
Yes.
We were talking about the statistic of how much on average it costs to raise a kid a year. What was it?
Oh,
It's absurd.
Yeah.
and it keeps going up. It's like with inflation.
It's not
Yeah.
gone down. Well, I mean, I know a number of friends who have both work, and by the time it comes to putting your kid in daycare, it's basically a wash for one of their
Totally, it's
income.
the one entire
and
salary.
It's like, okay, well, does what I do feel valuable enough that I need to keep doing it and pay for childcare, or should I just, like, we can clearly just eat the money, so why not just eat the money and be home with my kid all day?
Yeah.
Right? It's a very real consideration
Yep.
people have to, especially in a city like Denver.
Totally. And it was interesting having our first in England because they don't really there's like maybe one pseudo baby store, like maybe like a section of Tesco. So, we were like, and then we come to the United States and the amount of
Inundated.
stuff that you're expected to have a baby. We were shocked.
It was stunning.
Because I remember the first time we were pregnant with Ian, and they're like, you need to go register at, I don't know, Babies R Us, or I don't even know what the store is, Bye Bye Baby or whatever. And going through the store, and they're like, they give you a list of all the things you need. And we were like, we didn't use any of this with the first one. And it was like, totaling thousands and thousands of dollars. So I think even sort of the materialistic Western, maybe just unique to the United States, expectation of stuff with baby is shocking.
Which then puts pressure
Right, totally.
on the family budget.
Yep.
And then,
Right.
a lot of couples then, we've faced this in the past. We can't go out to eat for a date because
Paying a babysitter.
whatever, because it's just going to cost too much money. Mm-hmm. And we don't have it. And so we're going to try and stay in and maybe have some time together, but is that going to work well when the kids are little? Probably not.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be a lot harder
Right.
to pull it off. So that's a huge one. But it's also connected, I think, to your initial point, which is we have a lot of cultural expectations
Yep.
on us as parents that we have to have certain things in order to be responsible. And many of those expectations are unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to
Right.
obey those expectations. We can buck some of those.
Right. I'm thinking even if, I mean, people come to our house even now and we still have all three of our kids in one bedroom and they're just flummoxed. Like they just can't get their head around how we have three kids in one bedroom. So even just that expectation of home space for children, it's like our house is plenty big. We have, I mean, in other countries, multiple families live together,
Right.
in smaller spaces than what we have. So I think even just the expectation of space.
Yeah, we had family when Shell and I bought our house come visit and be like, "Oh, this is such a cute little starter home," and it's like, it's a 2,200 square
know.
foot, 3-bed, 2-bath,
Yeah.
good yard. Like, it is, especially for Denver standards, it's so much house.
Totally.
And they're like, "Well, yeah, if you end up having more than 2 kids, you're gonna have to get a bigger house so they can each have their own room." And I was like, "No, I don't."
Says who?
Says who? I was like, they were begging to be in the same
Right.
room as each other, and now like can't sleep if they're not in there together.
Yep.
Like
And we're just eliminating the necessity of downsizing later.
That's
Like
right.
we're just skipping the
Yeah,
whole
exactly.
just skipping the whole expand and then having to downsize.
And we've seen a ton
Yep.
of that on our block.
Yeah.
Where then the kids go away and then they have like, here's this older couple in this giant house. They don't know what to
4,000
do.
square foot house
Yeah.
with no one else living in it.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I know you guys, there was a point where the chaos was getting to you and you were considering popping the top on your
Yep.
house or doing, you're like, I just need, everybody needs their own space. I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm glad we
yeah.
didn't either.
And the reason why we didn't do it is because of financial.
Yeah, because well, at this point, it costs us. I would pay more to pop the top on my house today than I paid for my house 6 years ago.
We would pay 3 times the
Yeah,
amount
well,
that we
especially
paid
you
for our
guys,
house.
because you bought
Yeah.
over a decade ago.
Yeah. Okay, so just talking about a few pitfalls. What are some helpful to-dos or just some helpful things that we've seen have helped us and other people or people you've counseled to just maintain a strong marriage through the physical exhaustion, the emotional exhaustion, just the years of the parenting years?
I think maybe the best thing that we did was we asked, what kind of family and what kind of marriage do we want to have? Mm-hmm. And so we kind of started with what our values are. Mm-hmm. We knew intellectually the health of our marriage isn't just for our own benefit, but it actually is key for our kids' emotional well-being. But just knowing that isn't enough.
But I do think knowing it's helpful.
It is helpful
because even
with the
parents,
mindset
as
shift, yeah.
right, in hearing this, we want to do things that enhance our children's development. And so even just hearing that one of the main things you can do is have a good marriage, I guarantee there are people out there going, okay, like got to do
work on
this,
this.
got to do this. So I think even just being aware of that is helpful.
Yeah, I do too. And then know like, okay, what kind of marriage we have will not just determine or be of influence to our kids, but asking what kind of marriage do we want to have. Mm-hmm. So it was helpful for me to have a vision of a kind of marriage that then we can work towards.
Like someone you watch or something that you're
I think
conjuring.
characteristics. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I wanted to have a marriage that we exude and experience forgiveness. Mm-hmm. So in the house, you're not constantly bringing up things that I used to do, and I'm not constantly bringing up things you used to do. Mm-hmm. But there's genuine, not that you don't have fights or arguments or whatever, but that there's real forgiveness and reconciliation, and to have a marriage that's built on forgiveness rather than perfection. Like that, to me, that was like a vision that I've wanted for our marriage that helped to kind of give us a target,
Yeah.
especially when it was hard.
Yeah.
You know, when the kids, there's so much kind of interference.
Yeah.
Working against the feeling of closeness
Yeah.
in a marriage.
I think that this seems silly, but I do think this was actually really helpful for us. Is we sort of like people who are in war together. There's such a bond. We kind of viewed it like us against them.
Yeah.
Like there were seasons where it felt very much like we were on the same team, like in the trenches against them.
Yeah.
We had a season. Jesse may have to bleep this too, where they were just so needy, and just to diffuse sort of the unrelenting tension of parenting, we would just call them little.
Yeah.
And
they were.
They were.
They were.
They were.
Yeah.
But it was so helpful for both. We would just look at each other and be like, little shit. Like, it was just a helpful, like, we're acknowledging that we're in this together. You and I are on the same side, and we're united against them. Not actually against them, but
I know what you mean, though.
we're on the same team. It felt like we were on the same team. In as much as I think sometimes it becomes tit for tat against each other.
Yeah, and kids early on learn how to play
Totally.
you against each other.
Totally.
Yes.
100%.
Where they will divide and conquer.
Yeah.
For their own benefit because they are little what?
I remember one time, and I think we may have mentioned this on the podcast before, but we were talking about divorce because one of Beckett's really good friends, parents were getting divorced, and we were kind of hashing out what that meant, and Beckett looked at me and he said, "Are you guys going to get divorced?" And I go, and I didn't miss a beat, and I was like, "Oh no, we'd get rid of all three of you before we got divorced,"
Yes.
as a joke. But
Give you away.
But I think that stability, like they know we're important to each other. It's not all about them. I think that's really important.
And that you've got my back and I've got your back.
Yep.
And it's kind of easy early on. And I think this is a constant thing because we're different people. Your kids can perceive what your inclinations are and what you're more likely to do in certain situations. And so I think they have to be convinced that even though you might disagree with how I handled a situation, they know you're not going to turn on me.
Right.
That we're always going to have a unified front.
Yeah.
As best we can. We're
Right.
not perfect in that, but
Right.
But that provides real stability, and then it increases loyalty between us in the trenches, and that bonding that happens. It's really sweet.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah. What else? What other strategies or helpful observations do you think that people could take away if they're in sort of a season of just the kids are killing us in our relationship?
I mean, I think you have to do whatever you can to have time together.
Right.
And
The cliche date night.
Yeah, date night, and then but lower your expectations as to whether or not date night will be good. Oftentimes, couples who haven't had a date night forever, they have a date night and they fight and bicker the whole time. They're like, "Well, that was terrible. Why did we do that?"
That was worth it.
Yeah.
And my encouragement is just to expect that's going to happen, but it won't continue to happen. Like, keep working through it.
Yeah.
You kind of have to, it's like unclogging a sink. You have to get all the crap out first, and then finally there'll be a flow that happens, but you have to work to unclog it. I know we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but kind of our Friday, like, you have to have physical intimacy together as much as you can, like in a reasonable way. And so reference Great Sex Rescue or Made in Captivity or any number of the books we've talked about sex, but sex is a gift given to couples in marriage as a way, as an elixir, as a way to help shield and deal with the slights and vicissitudes of life. And I know that when kids are little and our bodies are changing. Sometimes physically, that might not be something that we initially would want to do. But I think beginning to prioritize it is so healthy for your marriage. It just, I can't overstate it. It's disproportionately influential in your relationship with each other. Of course, I know it's complicated and there's always examples of people that they have particular struggles, and I get all that. But I think just as a rule of thumb, prioritizing sexual intimacy in your relationship, and that doesn't mean the 72-hour rule or any of the terrible things that you hear within some pockets of evangelical Christianity, but it does mean that we are going to prioritize time together and being close physically, sexually, creates a bond. It gives joy. It's a quick shot of well-being that God's literally woven into creation. So why not use that?
Compelling argument.
As if people needed more convincing.
But when kids are little, I think you do need convincing at times.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
So I think that's one. And then again, people might just roll their eyes on this. Go to church. As a Christian, and I say this on multiple different levels. You know that church has childcare, right?
Free.
They don't charge you. So for bleary-eyed parents out there, drop your kids off at church. Take them to FDC, and we have kind, wonderful, thoughtful adults who will love your children, and they'll have an incredible kids' church experience. And you, as parents, you can go to church. It will be great. You can worship, take communion, and hear a sermon, and you can have a cup of coffee. You can maybe walk down to Corvus.
I was going to say, there may have been a few times I dropped my kids off at childcare and went to the coffee shop alone.
Yes. And
Hey, that's okay too.
Hey,
I won't tell our elders.
and you're among friends. You're among friends. But going to church, it's a family. And if you don't have someone to help relieve the pressure of the kids, the church is part of the structure of it, is to help relieve that and to share that burden with you. So I really would, and I know it sounds self-serving to hear a pastor say, you should go to church, but it really does help. I mean, all of the evidence is clear. It really does help in your marriage. It helps with your kids. It's just the pluses are too many not to ignore.
Okay. I think that's a good place there's some good nuggets there.
Yeah.
We also are doing, but it probably wouldn't be good to plug it because
It's already done.
It's already done.
But they could actually reference it. Is it going to be recorded? It's not going to be recorded. The
I think
parenting?
it is going to be recorded.
Sure.
Okay. So we are doing a parenting thingy tomorrow night at FDC. So if you're listening to this and are interested in that, go to our website and see if it's there. I'd say 50-50.
Wow.
I say 50-50 it's there.
Wow. I'm sure many people will look that up.
Okay. All right.
Great. All right, honey. Surprise question. I'm the questioner today.
The second to last surprise question of the season.
Yes. So last week, in your surprise question to me, your question was, do you expect me to take you seriously in your attempts to dunk a basketball? And do you really think that you're going to do it? Mm-hmm. Which I think was a fair and fun question, fun discussion. On Wednesday, playing basketball, having fun, not actually training, but still playing. I make a wrong turn and my knee buckles. Today have swollen knee and I don't know what the deal is. So basically what you predicted, which is if I don't get serious about training and working out, and we didn't talk about this extensively on air, but off air, Renee's like, you have to start actually doing like strength training,
discipline strength training.
I joked about what's your jump training.
Yes.
What are you doing to work
Yes.
those fast twitch fibers?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
Seriously.
Yes. And I, of course, laughed it off and did what I do and just thought, oh, I'll just keep playing basketball at the same rate. And then yesterday, it kind of came to a crashing in. So hopefully not terrible.
I don't think it's that severe, but
Hopefully not.
don't be fatalistic.
Okay. But the question is, in your heart, like somewhere in you, are you like
Gloating?
not
I
gloating,
told you so.
not gloating, but like a little vindicated? Like I was trying. It's kind of like when your kids experience natural consequences. It's like you don't love it, but it's like it's good for them.
Yeah. Did you feel that when you came home in my posture?
Well, you're always angry at me when I get hurt.
I wasn't angry. That's unfair characterization. I was not angry.
Were you annoyed?
I'm just not like doting. I'm not like fawning, doting as if you're gonna die.
Right. Because with your job for 20 years,
Right.
you were with people who deserve empathy
Right.
all the time.
Right. But I understand the scale too. And I understand when, I mean, had you come in with your knee at an angle that was unnatural, then it's time to really pay attention to it. And I
Right.
know you.
Right.
So I know when you need a little like, just keep going, it's fine. And when you need a little bit more care.
True. And you do. You extend that to me. But I did wonder.
You felt a little I told you so?
Well, I just wonder if you like in your heart of hearts, was it a little bit of like this guy
Well,
kind of got what was coming?
I think there's a dynamic in a lot of relationships where the spouse can just make suggestions or whatever, and it just hits like deaf ears. And someone else can say it, and then all of a sudden this light bulb goes off, and it's like, oh my gosh, this was the best wisdom ever, right? So I think sometimes that happens with us, where I'll say, you need to do this, and it just bounces, right?
Right.
And I've said for a long time, you need to do some just basic, because you like to play basketball, but it's like thrashing and it's like joint. It increases your cardiovascular health, but it kind of tears down your body. It isn't like stretching or strength training that kind of builds up the body so that you can do these other things.
Right.
And I've said it for a long time.
Yeah.
That you need to do these things, and it just kind of I don't think you actually hear it. So maybe there was a little vindication, but I don't like it when you're hurt.
No, you don't. And I'm not
So
saying that you did.
maybe once you're walking better, then I can really feel the vindication.
Okay,
Because I do feel empathy for you now.
I sense that you feel sorry for it because it does hurt. But
Yeah.
okay, all right. Well,
The moment it happens, Dave's like, I'm never going to live this down.
So moral of the story is you should listen to your wife more.
yes. Check. Renee, how can I make your day better?
Today, I think, gosh, I just want to flip it on you. Do you have something at the fore?
How you can make my day
Yeah.
better?
Do you have something that's just,
Well, you already made my day better because your normal group tonight isn't meeting.
right?
And so, and we have a friend staying with us. And so there was mentioning of us having a relaxing evening together. Maybe we can take said friend over another friend's house.
I was going to
To the
say,
Cowens.
you know how you can make mine and
Jesse,
my wife's
you take
day
this
better.
question.
And mine
How
too.
can we make your day better?
That's multifaceted.
Yes.
Yeah, how you can make our days better and your day better. If I'm
Yes.
just being honest.
Yes.
Yes.
Impromptu cocktail night at my house to celebrate my wife's birth.
That's
That's great.
Yes, done.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
Yes.
Everybody's night will be better.
Hey, everyone wins. I'm for that.
Okay, sounds great.
Well, honey, is this it?
Well,
Are we at the
need
end
to
of our-
do
what we're into.
one
What
of
we're
us
into, yeah.
is into right now. We need if someone has a pressing passion, what's a does it-
A pressing passion.
Dave's is rehabbing his knee.
Well, I was going to say I tried to have my knee above my heart, and that's really hard to do.
It is hard to do.
Yeah.
It is hard to do. And you really did never get it last
no,
night.
you kept were like it has to go higher,
well,
and I felt very contorted.
it's just actual physics of where your foot is in relation to your heart. And so
I
you'd be
know.
like this, and I'd be like, it's not above your heart. So it'd be like, well, this. I'm like,
I mean,
it's still.
does bending it hurt?
Yes.
It just
Like at a
stays.
90
It
degree.
just stays bent.
I was going to say, because if you're at a 90-degree angle, you can literally prop something up under your
Yeah.
calf.
Yeah,
and
that's-
just
that's
sleep
a
with
good
your whole leg
suggestion.
propped
Too,
up.
so, yeah, into rehab.
I'm gonna say I am into. So I've always kind of been a runner my whole life, and I am into a new shoe,
What'd you get?
Hoka.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll
The
see.
one and only.
Yeah,
Of course, the weather's terrible outside.
right.
Sure.
So I'm into the Hoka running shoe.
Pretty sure I've seen your kids in Hokas, though.
Beckett has Hokas.
Yeah, I was going to say, pretty sure I saw Bex wearing Hokas this morning.
Only because he was running cross country in essentially flip flops, and came home and he said, "Can you buy me some running shoes?" So we took him to Boulder Running Company, and of course, they put the hard sell on him. Ended up in Hokas.
And it worked.
Well,
So I'm into Hoka
because
running
it's
shoes.
a brilliant shoe.
Yeah, we'll see if it transforms my life. Oh gosh, good save. Sorry, we just about
Renee, yeah, almost
soiled
just-
Jesse's
almost just
couch with my
spilled
coffee. Dave
My bed away from home.
Dave saved it. Jesse, are you into anything?
Yeah, my wife's great, and I've been super impressed with the last few weeks and how there's just been a lot happening in our house, good, bad, otherwise, and it would be overwhelming to most people. And I've been able to watch her be super resilient and encouraging to others, and introspective, but not fatalistic with hard stuff. And I don't know, I'm just super impressed. And we talked last year about how one of the key aspects of like caring and loving for your spouse well is just admiration, just like being impressed by and almost awed by what your spouse. And I've found myself in that the past week, especially, just like, this woman is amazing.
What
And so-
what a beautiful way to end a marriage podcast.
It is.
Is Jesse being into his wife.
Yes.
She's great.
Well done. Well done.
All right. Thanks for listening.
See you, everyone.
Drive safe out there, Denverites.
Bye.
A week
Bye.
later. Yep, bye.
That